Welcome back to episode 15 of Mathghamhain Morsels. This is going to continue the Simple Comforts series. So tonight I'm going to be making what I'm going to call a Cheese Burger Casserole or Cheeseburger Hot Dish. So this is a fairly simple recipe. It involves some ground beef. This is just that 80-20 that I've been using in the other ones that also use ground beef. A small Vidalia onion, which I've put through one of the fine sections of my mandolin slicer with one of the cross-cutting blades. So I have these little pieces of onion. You can just finely dice it if you don't have a mandolin slicer. Then I have mushrooms, which I've just cut into somewhere between 1/4 of an inch to 1/3 of an inch slices. Going to use probably 3 cans of mushroom soup, cream of mushroom soup again. And this might go up to 4. I'm going to see how much liquid is in it. Some cheddar cheese, which I've already sliced up. This is a mild cheddar cheese. And then also a smoked cheddar cheese. I've just cut it into very, very rough blocks. The size doesn't really matter all that much because it's going to melt down and become ooey gooey goodness. And then I also have potatoes, which I've already run through the mandolin, and I've slice them the same way that you would hash browns. So those are currently sitting in a bath of water to wash off some of the starch and prevent any oxidation. I'm also going to be wringing those out in a flour sackcloth, or cheesecloth would also work. Flour sackcloth and cheesecloth are pretty much the same thing, only cheesecloth has a waxy-like coating on it that makes it a bit more hydrophobic. It doesn't soak up as much water. The flour sackcloth is going to do the trick beautifully. Either cloth works for this. But you want to wring out the potatoes as much as you can in one of those cloths. So I will join you guys back up in the kitchen as I start throwing this together. Okay, and welcome back. So, here we are in the kitchen. So I have a good steel deep skillet or saucepan on the burner right now, which is currently on medium-high heat. It's been preheated and I've just oiled it slightly. This is the same one that you might recognize from my pork chops, rice, and mushroom soup. So into this goes the beef. The blood was in the bowl with the beef. Quickly wipe that up. And that's just going to sizzle away for a bit. We want to get some nice coloration on this beef, unlike in the previous 2 dishes, where we didn't really care about color. This one we actually do, so we want to make sure that it gets a nice bit of sear before we start throwing anything else in. I also have my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's because after getting this all started on the stovetop, it's going to end up going into the oven and baking down, letting the mushroom soup thicken up, and letting the cheese melt, like I said. So while I have this going, let me show you the real simple setup that I'm going to use to both strain and then squeeze my potatoes. So I just have like I said, flour sackcloth over a nice fine sieve. Just going to dump the potatoes into there, get them mostly drained off, and then wrap it up in the flour sackcloth and start twisting and squeezing the potatoes to get as much of the liquid out as I can. This is the same approach that you would use in order to make hash browns at home. So let me get that started off to the side. It's not that impressive looking, it's just squeezing potatoes, dumping the water that I had them sitting in just to keep them oxidizing out. This you don't want to do too early into the process. You definitely want to wait until after you've had the beef started. But you don't want to wait too long, else you'll be doing this while you actually need to be paying attention to the pan. So as I said, I'm just kind of keeping the potatoes into this. Get as much of them as you can. I used 2 good-sized russet potatoes for this meal. And this will leave plenty of leftovers for me. If you're cooking for a larger family, you'll want more, and that is 1 pound of beef again. So, set this in the bowl just to make it easier. That beef is starting to sound and smell like it's just about ready to flip it and start breaking it up. So we're going to break up the beef into the pan. Once it's been cooked on one side of it and flipped. And then I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, just like with larger portions of beef that I've done on the channel, or more solid forms of beef, not ground beef. The way that you get a nice sear on something is try to touch it as little as you can. So I'm going to let that sit for a few moments as I go back to my potatoes. So I got all my potatoes into the flour sackcloth. And now, like I said, I'm just going to be wringing and squeezing them out. So what I tend to do is I'll start by just grouping up the ends of my flour sackcloth, and I'll just start twisting that to squeeze the potato in the bottom. And once it gets to the point where I can't really twist it anymore, that's when I just start bearing down on the ball of potato itself and squeezing that with my hands, trying to get as much of this water out as I possibly can. So this dish, kind of like the pork chopped rice and mushroom soup, is an absolutely amazing fall and winter dish. It is again fairly standard Minnesota cooking, and it's something that I first had a version of this from my grandmother. This one is different than the one that she made. Hers uses tater tots, but the times that I've tried to make it that way, it comes out fairly salty, so I end up doctoring it in order to get the flavors to work out a bit better. But this way, because I'm using the fresh potatoes and I'll pots that have already been seasoned, I have a lot of control over the salt level without having to change the type of soup or anything else about the dish. I can control everything with the potatoes. Because just like with the pork chops, rice, and mushroom soup, where I said that the mushroom soup concentrated down really needs the rice in order to not be completely overpowering and somewhat disgusting, so too does this dish really need the potatoes. So this pan, like I said, doesn't heat up and retain heat quite as well as my cast iron. So I turned up the heat because I ended up getting a bit too much juice in the bottom, which is causing the meat to steam rather than sear off like I really wanted it to. So just going to turn up the heat, shift it around a bit. That should allow a good bit of that liquid that accumulated to evaporate. And what I'm doing is kind of dragging it off to the side. That way I have more area for that liquid to dissipate in the center. So I've now turned it up to high, medium, high. And really the way that you do this dish is, like I said, you brown off the meat. You drain it very slightly, not all the way, because you want some fat in there for the onion to cook in. You want some fat in there for the mushrooms to cook in. So you don't want to get rid of all the fat, but you want to drain off some of it. And again, just like with the shepherd's pie and stroganoff before, never pour fat down the sink. So I have my fat can off to the side, and I'll be pouring the used fat into the fat can. I want to store and dispose of later. I normally let my fat can get fairly full before I finally get rid of it, but that's just because I cook every day, and more often than not, I have some fat I need to get rid of. So I have fairly good-sized fat cans that I use. Since I drink mainly Lipton iced tea when I'm at home, I just use those canisters. There we go. The beef is looking good. Now in can go the onions. You can drain either before you put the onions in, again, don't drain all the way, or I'm going to end up draining after I get the onions cooked most of the way. Oh man, the smell of the onions hitting the hot pan. And that beef fat rendered down. That's just a beautiful match, isn't it? Actually, this is not quite as much fat at the bottom as I was thinking it was going to be. So I think I might not even have to drain this today. instead. I'll just skip right to the next part. Throw in the mushrooms. Give it a toss, get them going around. And that's looking beautiful. The smells are absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to turn this back down. And I have my potatoes, which I've wrung out. Give it another squeeze, see if I can get any more fluid out. And I got just a little bit more. So now then, in will go the potatoes. Be careful while you're doing this, especially if you're using a gas range. Make sure that you have complete awareness of where the sackcloth is, because this is a very fine cloth that will go up in flames really quickly. So make sure that you're minding where the actual cloth is so that you don't end up sticking it into the fire and having a bowl of fire in your hands. As much fun as that sounds like it is a bad idea. So, put the potatoes in, and then you just kind of want to stir that. The fold kind of is the action. Much like folding something into whipped cream. You just want to get everything distributed throughout, so it isn't just a layer of potato on top of everything else. So just give that a couple stirs, flips. Once you have it mixed back in, now it's time for the soup. So again, I'm going to use probably at least 3 cans. I might end up grabbing a 4th. And this will kind of bring everything together, give it a nice bit of body. Somewhat what makes it the delicious and very, very hearty meal that it is. Along with the potato and all that, of course. This dish is really nice because unlike the pork chop rice mushroom soup, which is also really simple and delicious, this one is actually done entirely in one pot. So this has a lot less clean. In fact, it has half the cleanup of the pork chop rice mushroom soup, which had its pan and the rice cooker. So there's 1 can in. Let's get the second can in and then mix this in a bit. And just like the pork chops, rice, and mushroom soup, this was a meal that I first had when my grandma came down to visit. And also, just like the pork chops, rice, and mushroom soup, this was definitely a favorite of mine when I was playing football. Because when you come home hungry from football practice, games, oh, this hits all the right notes. It's exactly what you want to see. So there's 2 cans. One more can should do it. Mess up my favorite. This is also, just like pork chops, rice and mushroom soup. Not a dish that I would recommend if you're really trying to monitor your salts and try to cut back on your calories, because this is a very calorie and carb loaded meal with a fair bit of salt, so it's not the most hard grammar, but it is absolutely delicious. And there's the fun in having healthy comfort food. Comfort food is always kind of an indulgence. Something delicious that you don't really worry about. Is this healthy? Is this something that's good for you? It's just something that you know tastes amazing. Okay, so that's 3 cans of soup worked into this. Now, all you do is throw this into the oven, and you let it bake away in the oven for a bit. Then, when it's starting to look ooey and gooey, delicious goodness, and the potato is done through, because the potato is entirely raw right now, that's when you'll start adding the cheese onto the top. And like I said, the blend of cheese that I'm using is a mild cheddar and a cold smoked cheddar, which go absolutely beautifully with this dish. But you can use just cheddar, you can use a sharp cheddar, you can use a mild cheddar, you can use just a smoked cheddar. You try other cheeses. Any cheese that tastes really good on a hamburger will taste really good in this dish. Because effectively, this is all the flavors save for mustard and ketchup of a really good cheeseburger, with the potato taking the place of the bread. So I will join you guys back when I'm tossing the cheese on. I'll show you what it looks like before that. And then I'll be back for the last time to show you how it looks when it's done. Okay, so I went out, did some errands, came back, and I had let this thing go for about 2 to 3 hours, just bubbling away in the oven. And this is what it looks like. So now, I'm just going to throw on all the this lovely cheese, well, not quite all of it myself, but a lot of this lovely, lovely cheddar. Which again is a mild cheddar and a smoked cheddar. I just cubed it up, so some of this is a cold smoked cheddar, some of this is just a standard mild cheddar. And this you don't need to cover over entirely, just throw on as much cheese as you want. If you like it really cheesy, throw on a lot. If you like it just a little cheesy, a thin layer, it is entirely up to you. Make this dish your own, as I encourage you to do with every single dish I do. Experiment, try different things. See if you like it cheesy. See if you don't like it as cheesy. So, I'm probably going to throw on just a little bit more cheese. I like it very much. And then this will go back into the oven to let that cheese melt down on top and melt into the dish. And be absolutely delicious. So this is just going to again go into that 350-degree oven. And it goes in until the cheese looks how you want it to look. If you want it to get kind of caramelized on top, you can let it go until it gets that somewhat caramel color on top. If you just want it melted down, that's perfectly fine. I tend to go a little in between, not quite fully caramelized, not just melted down on top. But you guys will see that once this is done. So, I'll see you at my desk when it's finished. And here's the final result. Ooey, gooey deliciousness. The cheddar cheese caramelizes up a little bit. Like I said, I like it somewhere in between getting some good caramelization and just being melty deliciousness. It's absolutely delicious. The potatoes help soak up the saltiness just like the rice did of the soup that condensed down. The cheese and the meat go beautifully together, as of course they would, since this is a cheeseburger hot dish. Everything with the exception of mushroom soup is something that goes on a cheeseburger normally. And it's delicious. So, ooh, hot. If you haven't tried this dish before, make this something new that you try this week. See if you like it. I do. It's a classic from when I was younger. And it's just as good as I remember it. So with that, figure out something new to try. Or remake a classic from your childhood. Enjoy cooking. Enjoy having the food. And just get into the kitchen. Have fun. I know I do. With that, I'm gonna continue eating this and let you guys be. Have a good one all.